Welcome back to Turn Down for What, your source for EV news and updates. Like and subscribe for more content like this episode. Let's dive on in.
Welcome back to Turn Down for What? Another day.
Another episode, this time off mute.
Off mute. Thank you, Chris. Obviously, we are working for consistency to be on weekly for our listeners. We've done really good with Tech Charge being on time on Thursday nights. It's been terrific. I think great engagement. In the short term history, our main podcast episodes have been inconsistent because Jesse and I have been all over the moon, and we're dealing with availability windows with Chris being in the Western time zone, and it makes things fun. But we are doing well. We're thriving and surviving. Moving forward, we are working to be consistent, and here we are. It is Tuesday, and we're on, so we're excited to be here. Today, we wanted to kind of talk about some of the recent moves. We kind of alluded to it last week, but right after our show, there was a big public display at the White House for selling, Trump buying a Tesla and what that might mean for Tesla. And there's been a lot of different happenings within the stock market for the Tesla stock. And there was some news this week that came out about what Tesla was doing in the Chinese market and some of the Chinese analytics. And so we figured we'd kind of talk a little bit today about our thoughts on where the market's going with Tesla, what's happening with their business as a whole, but also a little bit about the EV market in China and kind of what that might mean. So, that's kind of the main premise and topic of today that we can kind of discuss and see where that takes us.
Yeah, and then we'll there's some YouTube type news I want to share. There's some cool stuff going on that we'll touch on there. Some cool videos that were out this week that I've been watching that I think people would find interesting. Where do we want to kick off first, guys? We want to hit up the YouTube videos, and then we'll kick over to the BYD news, I guess.
If you're listening, you're gonna have to hang on a minute so we can get to the juicy news. We'll start with YouTube news, and then we'll get to this BYD conversation.
No, I was going to say that I think the coolest one that came about was something that has been hinted at for a while and finally kind of happened. Brandon Flash looking for a new vehicle, and friend of the show, we've had him on before, and super excited when he revealed that we now have Brandon Flash, not in a Flash because that would have been awesome, but he did get an F-150 Lightning. He found one used at an incredible deal, I think, up in Virginia, and just really cool to see him in a truck again. Always felt like that's kind of where he belonged, and that right on brand. It's blue. His Rivian was also blue, and then his Tesla that he had for a while was blue. So cool to see him. Excited for the content he's going to make. He picked that up, drove he and his wife up to pick it up. They were in the Model Y, and it was just interesting because the charge characteristics were very similar to the Lightning. Obviously, we know the Y is incredibly more efficient, but in terms of time to charge, and the range, the battery is bigger on the Lightning, of course, but they got similar range and similar charge times. So the driving experience isn't all that different in a Lightning than it is in a Model Y. Of course, it's cheaper. Of course, it's more expensive, in the Lightning, cheaper in the Y, more efficient in the Y. But I thought that was just super cool to see him back in a truck again. As usual, he's super transparent. There are some quirks and bugs in his that he's trying to get worked out. His Blue Cruise and his front camera for lane centering seems like it gave him a fault or an error, so he's still trying to get that worked out. But I think he paid like $35,000 for the truck, fully loaded,
or something like that.
Yeah.
For me, being a 22 Lariat extended range with a little bit more miles than he had was minorly disheartening. Hopefully that's just a really good isolated deal. But if that's any indication of what my trade-in value is for my truck, then that's a that's a great thing for him. And kudos to Brandon for getting your Lightning and joining the Lightning Club. Negative to Jesse and I, who both have more miles than that on our Lariat extended range. Jesse has the exact same truck, Lariat extended range, Atlas Blue 22 with 10,000 more miles on it, and yeah.
So if you've wanted to know what the market is, Brandon Flash has set the market. Now you know how much depreciation the two of you have had. That Atlas Blue is a beautiful color, guys.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I don't know why they stopped it at just that first couple years, but it's a fantastic color.
So they can make the values go up. I mean, obviously 35,000,
38, whatever it was. Yeah.
38, yeah.
And it's got the bed liner, it's got the tonneau cover, it's spec'd and ready to go, man. It's a great deal. It's a screaming deal. So good for him, man. Good for Brandon. Super.
For more and then buy one like that for less and somehow end up on top, but I doubt
it. Yeah, and he had to go out of state to find it. He's been looking for a long time. I mean, he's been trying to figure out what direction he wanted to go. So welcome to the Ford family, Brandon Flash. Super cool. And then in other kind of stuff, we'll kick over to typical out of spec with their 2-hour videos. But this one was cool because, sometimes they'll do 2 hours of nerd data, but this one was right there in your backyard, guys. Super cool. There's this gentleman who unfortunately passed away, and his wife Bonnie invited the out of spec team to come over, and he has like an entire collection of EVs. And I'll share real quick his webpage, and I'll go back and maybe throw his links into the description later. But EV Jedi was the husband's webpage, and he's really big into electric motorcycle, electric quads. There's some batteries. He did all the work himself, had an incredible barn and workplace. It was nuts to see it, guys. And so normally when it's 2 hours, it's 2 hours of nerd data. This was 2 hours of a really great story. I mean, a gentleman that makes us all feel like we need to do more with our lives. It was super cool, and I'll bring up just one of the clips real quick, kind of showing just how many vehicles he had. But one of my kind of holy grail vehicles, the Ford Ranger battery electric, the Chevy S10 had a van, had of course the RAV4s, which were, I think he had two RAV4s there. So yeah, his wife Bonnie kind of took through and kind of showed off, and here you can see just a few of, there's like a minivan there, like a Dodge Caravan, and these aren't things that were converted. These were like OEM, released limited quantities back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So right there in Tennessee, I can't remember the name of the city that Bonnie was in. I do remember a reference to a city called Hole in the Wall, where they went and found one of these finds. But yeah, just super cool there, guys. So keep looking around your neighbors. Apparently you guys have some EV collections in your backyard.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, that's a unique find, and I think that town is out in Middle Tennessee, if I'm correct, just on the other side of Middle Tennessee towards Western Tennessee. But yeah, I mean, it's unique to see that kind of gem with an old a guy's old garage. You don't often see that he would have an entire portfolio of old and historical EVs and remodeled EVs and stuff. And it looked like he was pretty heavily into some conversions and looking at some of those different technologies. But yeah, most of the times when you see, look at this guy's old collections, it's a bunch of old classic cars, but this is a bunch of old classic EVs, which is a unique find in the market for sure.
Yeah, and he's got like multiple garages. Like here's one of them. You can see all the stuff on his wall. He's got a car lift, just random car lift that he added to the back of his barn. I mean, they call this a barn, but it's obviously had a ton of work and is converted well. But yeah, it was just really cool to see that kind of collection. So I thought that was really fun. I know on my list, I'd love to have like an original 2012 Model S. Every once in a while I poke around like on Facebook Marketplace, and they have like the that very, very first one that came out with limited, I think 1,000 of them were originally out. for that series, and they're not outrageous prices. They'll go into the 17,000 to 24,000 for that original Model S, and that'd just be a fun thing to have. Our buddy Martin Meek that does the podcast on Thursday night, he's done things with some of those older Tesla models, not the 2012s, but where he's done like the coolant delete in the motor, and so I always look for the coolant delete to see if that's been done. But yeah, these are just cool things. I think I love that kind of stuff for the electric vehicle community when these things come up. And then I guess the most controversial thing was the Mark Rober stuff, where he kind of did, the premise was about the LiDAR and can you fool a self-driving car, and he used the examples of LiDAR versus the vision that Tesla has, but there's just a ton of controversy because he used autopilot. Would that make any difference if he had used full self-driving? There's a guy, Everyday Chris, who went and did a video showing that the full self-driving struggled with thick fog. But then Mark Rober used a smoke machine, not really fog, and those things, while they look similar, aren't the same. A smoke machine is smoke. Fog has water molecules that bounce LiDAR around, and it doesn't let the camera see through it as well. I don't know. I'm not nearly scientific or engineering enough. I mean, do you guys get fog in Tennessee? I don't have Blue Cruise. So, for example, with Blue Cruise, does it struggle with heavy fog or anything like that? I don't know if you have that in your area.
I've dealt with a couple instances of Blue Cruise being wonky and some wonkier weather. But that's something that I don't think's been. In those situations, I don't think you should be relying on full self-driving technologies. When it's really dense fog, I wouldn't want to trust autopilot to be that to be my guiding force. And when it was like the road had a little bit of snow on it, it obviously starts to get or blur the lines. But also when I was dealing with some different rain, and the only issue that I felt with radar with the system was sometimes when the sun was shining directly in the front of my vehicle, it would mess up, I guess, the eye tracing reading. But in that instance, though, I mean, like that was the only one that was like, it shouldn't be doing this. But if it's really dense fog, I mean, I don't know how much you should be relying on technology to be doing the driving for you currently. But that's a variable that we do have to deal with. And super dense fog, I've dealt with it. If it's a little bit further out, it's usually been fine to maintain. But I'm still a lot more vigilant because I don't fully trust it, I guess, in that instance to break in the same metrics that it might do in clear weather. Just like, speed limit signs are
a parking lot that somebody painted a big a hole in a tunnel in that they keep running into, which is hilarious. So you could trick the eye. The question is, when you remove the steering wheel and no way of steering, is it the safest to not have LiDAR, which is that a system designed to basically get another wave of information into the vehicle? And I think once you remove the steering wheel, yes, it's that way. But I'm also thinking once you have an AI smart enough, it would have probably been able in the future to look at that wall and know, even though that it's a reflection, there was enough differentiation between it to where it would stop. So you're trying to compare something that maybe even a person wouldn't have been able to determine. And now you're trying to say, okay, that's today's technology, cut out the steering wheel, then what's it going to be? And I think we're not to that point yet. And I don't know which side's going to win on that, but I don't think that is today's good comparison.
Yeah. And it was all over the place of he didn't make it better because then he released like a, raw footage, but then you could tell that the raw footage wasn't the footage that was used in the actual video. And then he kind of admitted that they did shoots over a couple different days and a couple different takes. And there's a video part where he's driving down the middle of the road and neither autopilot or FSD would ever engage literally down the yellow line of the road. All that said, it is a camera, and there are some valid differences between LiDAR and some weaknesses with LiDAR and FSD. But if you're gonna, the passion and the rabidness of that community, you really, especially as a NASA engineer, you got to get your details really right on that, or it just spirals into this whole thing where I think there was some problems with the way he set up his test. As I speak with absolutely no engineering knowledge, right? But perception wise, at the very minimum, there are some issues with the way he set up the test. And then there are some things out there of people just rabidly going after him. But I don't know that the test results would be any different. I would love for him to go back with the pressure and do it with FSD, which would be funny, if he goes and he does it and has the exact same results. And I know a lot of people out there were like, oh, okay, well, the next time that I'm driving down the road and a big cartoon wall pops up, I'll be sure to know that I'm in trouble. But I've seen these stories in the past. It's been a few years, but where big semi-truck trailers would turn and the sun was in a certain way that the cameras couldn't distinguish between the background sunlight and sky and the white trailer or the off-white trailer because it was dirty and it couldn't distinguish, and a car slammed into it. Now, the driver should have been paying attention. That was older technology. And I know we have fog. Another video brought up that, the biggest causes of death are distracted driving, drunk driving, speed. Big cartoon walls aren't on the top list of things, and neither is fog. But I know out here in California down I-99, and I know I've seen in Texas too, there's lots of these huge accidents caused by fog. So I think the point is, yes, if you're talking about assisted driving technology, current ADAS, whether it, gets distracted by the fog or smoke or heavy rain, it's going to disengage and you should take control of the vehicle. But if you're talking, like you said, Jesse, I've removed the steering wheel, I've removed the accelerator pedal, I'm giving full autonomous control to this vehicle. These things happen in real life, rare though they might be, very pocketed circumstances. And I'm sure the technology also would safely pull over and say, hey, I can't drive in this environment. I don't know what you would do at that point, but it is a greater than zero number of times that these types of circumstances will come up. Maybe this helps put a bug in Tesla's ear and says, hey, this isn't in our top 10 list of things that FSD needs to do, but it is on the list before this thing goes live. And it's going live in the Bay Area that does get fog, and it's going live in Austin. So we'll see. I think it's great technology. I'm excited for it. I wish both sides would not get rabidly defensive or, kind of target Tesla either way, which we can kind of, segue into
the next round.
Into the next.
Last thing I'll say about that though is I think technology, we can become reliant on these technologies, but this is such it's a big, tall order to say computer system, whether that's all the different variations of technology that are associated with self-driving. That's a tall order to say, I'm going to remove the steering wheel and I'm now going to control all the elements no matter what and be able to safely get you from point A to point B. It's a tall order with technology, and I think it's going to end up having to be a combination of things. But pointing at the failures of current systems, I believe the statistic is that self-driving will have less incidents and less accidents than human error. And we talked about this before on a former episode. That one error we're going to point to and say, look what technology did. And yet we're still really early in that curve. And yes, Elon's trying to get, cyber taxi out next year or whatever that metric is. And, there needs to be a lot of consideration before you take all control away from the driver. And yet it's something that there's a lot of, this is a long journey to go with this technology because, yes, it doesn't detect a wall, but can it keep you between the lines? Can it keep you not crashing into vehicles 99.999% of the time? Yes. Now, do you want to put your faith into that system yet? That's up to you. I mean, plenty of drivers use that technology. Chris, you did your review of the Tesla a couple of weeks ago, and you were letting the vehicle drive you all over the place. And I mean, the technology is able to do that, But for now, while steering wheels are still in cars, because we don't have a vehicle on the road that doesn't have it yet, we have some full self-driving vehicles that are doing some of that technology. But as long as the driver has control, use the technology for the good the technology does, and let the technology eventually catch up to where it can cover some of those variables, because it's going to take a balance of several different technologies. I don't think it's going to be a single technology as the full solution. It's going to be, if you're taking all control away from the driver, it's going to probably be multiple systems of checks and balances to try to alleviate every single opportunity, whether that's LiDAR or systems-based computing. There's going to be a lot more that's going to have to be in place to keep the driver secure.
At the end of the day, you got about 6 million car crashes a day. Or a year here in the United States. So when you start thinking that there's over 40,000 people that die every year, you've got well over a couple million people that are injured each year. There's your mark. If this system can take that number down, now you're making progress. It doesn't matter what it does, and it doesn't have to be just Teslas. There's other people out there creating full self-driving. So as long as you know that person that's on their phone isn't going to hit you because they're not paying attention, that's all I care about. And if it makes it to where, well, the only way they're going to hit me is if I put a box in front of my car that's mirrors, then they're going to hit me. At least this system probably will do something. There needs to be upgrades, but I still think we're a pretty good amount of time away before AI gets integrated into it. And that's going to make a big jump, not just for Teslas, but that's going to be for Fords. That's going to be for Chevys. That's for everything. So I think we're on the right track. It is it is unique that there was multiple takes over multiple days. Makes me think there was a particular outcome that might have got more views, and that outcome was they waited till they got that outcome. I kind of wonder about that.
Really, you're going to perform a lot better on a YouTube video by having content that shows you smashing through the wall. And yet, at the same time, if it did do it organically, sure, it was a system upgrade, but all the variables that lead into that, I don't think that it's the end all be all full self-driving. I mean, there's plenty of drivers using it every day that are going to be completely safe. Should it completely drive you on your own without any future updates? I don't think anybody's ready for that. That's why it's not widely available for there's not steering wheel less cars today. Ford doesn't have full self-driving for a reason. It's not like this technology is just so advanced that everybody's comfortable with it. Tesla's the furthest ahead in the U.S. market for that technology, but we're not ready yet for taking all the elements and alleviating all control. And I think even with cyber taxi and RoboVan and stuff like that, they're not going to be used to
Rebovin.
I don't think that those technologies are going to be used to, immediately the day that the technology comes out, it's going to be used to haul you from East Tennessee to Los Angeles. You just hop in your car and it does everything on its own. It'll be used in big cities when the elements are correct to work around town. But outside of that, I don't think you're going to be dealing with that.
No, it's going to be used to shuttle people between workplaces and date night and things like the hotel to Act Expo. Shout out us, turned down for what? Act Expo. If anybody else is going to be at Act Expo, come look for us. Little plug there for our group.
I think I said this last week, but I'll also be at the EV charging.
Oh, the EV charging. Yeah, that's in Vegas, right? Yeah,
next week in Vegas. So if you're going to be there and you're a TDFW listener, feel free to reach out to me and we can connect while I'm there. I will be there all day Wednesday and most of the day Thursday. Yeah, just popping in to come check out everything and see all the updates. But we'll be in full force at Act Expo.
Yeah, and I think, Jesse, from what I saw, the reason that they did multiple takes, or what they say is the first take when they smashed through the wall, it went through the wall, but it didn't leave the cool cartoonish defined triangle kind of explosion shape that the second take did, and it just looked better. So they did multiple takes, and
again, I don't doubt anything that was said in it.
Neither do I.
He does a great job in creating content like that, and it's entertaining. It's just, is that what's going to happen in real life, and is that damaging to the overall part of what's trying to be accomplished? But I think that if it was Ford that was doing that and it was a Ford vehicle, there would have been a lot less attention on it right now. If that's the best way of saying it.
I also think, and I love Ford. I got their hat, but it's a big philosophical difference, right, between Ford and Tesla. Tesla, and we see this. We can kind of segue soon into the perception of Tesla and how it's slipped in the eye of many people. Elon has brought some of that same energy, that same kind of move fast and break things kind of mentality into government, and that's sometimes what some of the drama causes, but that's an example of it. It's Tesla's like, let's put it out there, let's put it in the hands of some of our early adopters, let's get it out, let's push the technology, let's expose the flaws, let's iterate. Same thing with SpaceX, let's crash the rockets, let's do what's never been done. And Ford would accomplish the same thing over 10 years. And their adapter technology, for example, that was a big rollout we talked about last week, where they've got their electron adapter, and they did this post of all this testing that they did, and it was super rigorous. It was, soak it in water, run over it with the car, smash it into the ground, an extra pin to keep it like that next level of safety. Now it took them a year to fulfill those 140,000 adapters because they wanted to get a partnership. They wanted to get a mold and a product that they knew would stand the test of time. But that's why some people don't have the updated brew crews. That's why the software updates take longer. That incredible focus on safety, which is, not a bad thing, but it does make the technology slower to push. But now you see the result of when you try to push technology and you get a lot of fan folks out there extolling the virtues of this thing. And they've been doing it for years with FSD. Elon for many years has been saying it'll take you from, Los Angeles to New York and back or whatever. And to your point, Jesse, yeah, we're not there. We're getting there. We're getting there faster than we would have ever gotten there without his push, his mindset, his first principles thinking. But, there's a double-edged sword to that, and I think we see some of it, and that's part of the controversy.
Sure. I like Ford would upgrade their technology better, because my truck, they had that big update where you can charge faster. I'm still on like 4 months ago, so I'm going to take mine to the dealership and be like, can you update this for me? I don't have the fancy tech that Martin has to go plug it in and do updates manually or whatever he does, but I would like to have that for sure.
So then the combination of all that kind of Tesla controversy, or really it's Musk controversy, that results in one side protesting and keying cars. We had a person that was arrested out here in San Jose that was caught on the cameras keying a Tesla. And that's awesome. Awesome to see the justice that they were caught, not awesome that they keyed the car. And then I've got a bunch of people in my orbit that I've seen that they were bringing donuts to the Tesla service centers, because that's the kind of cool community that Tesla has. All these poor employees that are U.S. jobs, American jobs, and the most American-made car ever made, and not just assembled, right? A lot of these cars like ours are assembled in the U.S. I love it. That's great. Big fan. Like I said, I got the hat, guys. I'm not hating, but there is no more American car, in mass than the Tesla. In fact, there's many Hondas and whatnot that are built in your neck of the wood, guys, that are more American top to bottom than our Lightnings, or than the Mach-E that's assembled in Mexico. So, for me, this is a bigger picture. And here you can see the reason that I'm so passionate about not hating on Tesla or any of these EVs, because I think EVs are the future. And here you see BYD just continuing to crush it, right? We've seen Kyle went out to China, showed us all the cool technology they have, including similar full self-driving, some with LiDAR, some without. BYD talked about putting some of their full self-driving technology even in their cheapest cars. Here's an example of like a 5-minute charging thing they're calling the flash chargers. A lot of flash in the news. Shout out once again, Brandon Flash. Different spelling. The flash chargers, which are doing, Jesse, what was the number? I think you said 5 minutes, 250.
Yeah, there's multiple people that have put that out there. One of them said that much.
It was like go down a little bit further. I think it was
250 miles on a 5-minute charge, or 249 miles. So it's 400 kilometers on 5 minutes. So, I mean, still, you're looking at peak speeds of 1,000 kilowatts, which would be very similar to, our site can do under a Navy site. We have designed ours for 800 kilowatts. We could add a cabinet and do that. This is where you have to get into the cable and make sure that the cable can deliver that. So they have megawatt charging systems that are out there for tractor trailers now. So basically, this is a megawatt charge on a vehicle, and it can accept that power, which would mean that its architecture is going to be it'd be 1,600 volt architecture or higher in order to accept that.
In that article is 1,500 volts, which is
yeah. There you go. So it's a 1,500 volt architecture.
Double the 800 volts that you see with our fastest vehicle. But I mean, if you could get a vehicle that receives that type of input, I mean, that's insane. But also the infrastructure support for that is wild. But I mean, China itself, as kind of going back to the original topic point, China itself has advanced itself so far ahead of the US EV market that they're able to start looking at expanding technologies like this because they have so much more of a diverse EV demand. But nonetheless, like that type of infrastructure is insane, and it takes epic vehicles to receive that type of energy, but also epic infrastructure to deliver that kind of power because that's a lot of juice.
And this is another key where we come up to: is that going to be something that we need in America? Probably not. Is this something that's revolutionary? No, because the tractor trailers have this same architecture in them, and it's basically the same thing. The difference is they are implementing it and they're putting it into their communities. And it's also why Josh and I have designed our systems where we could upgrade to that. We do have 1,000 kVW transformer. So we do have a system that right now you wouldn't be able to deliver 1,000, but the company that we're working with does have cables that can deliver 1,000 kilowatts to a truck, in this case, a megawatt charging system. Could we use that system with our infrastructure already in the ground and not have to build a whole new system? Yes, we can. And I think that's where we are trying to make sure that we don't know where it's going to be in 5 years or 10 years, but what we're doing today can be upgraded to that without starting from scratch. And I think that's kind of when you read this, you think, is this the tipping point that would get an everyday American to buy an EV if they could charge it in 5 minutes? And if it is also $40,000 or $30,000 and it can go 300 miles, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be the case. If it is, they're already doing it. And those are the numbers, kind of what they're doing. So, we see in our crystal ball, either we keep up or we don't, one or the other. If they're able to use a third less energy than Americans are to get that same distance that we are going, they're going to have more energy to spend on things like manufacturing, like AI. And I don't think we can give them that opportunity. So in this case, we need to be doing the same.
So here's my question then. Going into the other semi-controversial news that occurred last week, right after we filmed our last episode, there was a big, I would label it publicity stunt, where Elon brought out 3 or 4 different Teslas to the White House lawn, and Trump came out and did a purchase of a Tesla on the lawn of the White House. Which I think was surprising to me. I mean, obviously he has Elon in his ear, but we've had the discussion of the politicalness of EVs and some of the questions that are taking place with that. But what do you think, Jesse and Chris, that does for the EV market? Does it do anything? Does that help bridge a divide where maybe some people that would, identify as a Republican that might be anti-EV because of the principle of the matter? Do you think that bridges the gap? Do you think it just stays status quo and Trump was just trying to give a plug to juice Tesla with some of the news happening? Or do you think that it's something that there's a general sentiment that EVs as a whole might not be as against his agenda as some people might have suggested?
I will tell you that it's not as suggested once the Navy funds are back in place and flowing again. So for me personally, that's where I'm at. We have a huge infrastructure program that supports EVs. That is paused. It's not gone anywhere. If I see that go back in place, then I think, okay, there is something to this of that's going to be, letting it go. I also know that free market capitalism is what a lot of these programs should be based on. Should you be subsidizing other brands over other types of systems over traditional? And I don't think that I still feel like that is a good debatable thing. For me, I think it was a nod of the hat. Let's make some PR for it. I don't think it's going to move the needle on anybody that is in the world that we are. I do feel like there is and this is why we founded the podcast. I think there is still messaging errors on both sides. I think that there's great things about EVs. I think there's horrible things about EVs, especially when you come to where we get our cobalt at. So I think that it needs to be marketed on what is the real value to people. And for me as an EV owner now, I'm not going to go back. I love diesel. I love gas. Love it. For me, I like the ability to charge at home and always have that ability. I love the torque. I love the speed of the vehicle. Those are things for me personally. But that might not be the same for a guy that needs to haul or gal that needs to haul a camper across the country. If I was doing that, I'd want a diesel. You got to have a diesel because it's actually more efficient and probably less damaging because there's a lot of energy that needs to go that way. And so I think it was just some fluff to a nod of the hat to the car company that he owns. Is it going to help the EV space? I think it's probably hurting it because in this case, Tesla is the biggest and the most known. So it may turn off people from wanting to buy an EV now because of that, who would have. Hopefully they go to Ford. Hopefully, if it does affect that system, I hope they go and at least look at the other options. But I think that, I don't think it's really going to matter one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think, like I've said before, I've always viewed Trump through the transactional lens. He's all of his policies kind of point to that, right? Like even when it comes to the trade and the tariffs and the stuff that we talk about, and that stuff impacts EVs from the battery standpoint, from the manufacturing standpoint. Our friends at A to Z and Amin, they have their manufacturing in Canada. They get different parts and stuff sourced from China. And for him, it's a transaction, right? Like whatever you do with your tariffs to us, we will do back to you on your products. It's a transaction. I'm going to support you, but I want something back in return. I want something for the American people. And so I think it's very much a transaction. He's big on loyalty. I think that when Musk got involved and put a lot of his presence behind Trump and helped with that whole initiative, and they have a lot of alignments and synergies, and then they have areas that are alignments of transaction, alignments of convenience. Trump has never been, the guy doesn't even drive, right? Like he jumped into the car. He didn't close the door. He didn't drive it. It's not, he bought it as a performative support for a guy that's been loyal to him as part of that transactional relationship. And he's never going to drive that Model S. He's going to give it to somebody. It's going to sit on a driveway. It's going to look awesome. It's a great photo opportunity. I think the focus, like we've talked about, goes back to the American jobs and the American products and the technology that we need to compete in this global environment. And I think that putting him out there in that way of having, Musk on the White House driveway with those vehicles. I mean, he should have been there back when Biden was there and had that big cabal of, EV companies that were nowhere near what Tesla is and what Tesla has done. And the fact that they excluded, it's everything wrong with politics, right? They excluded Tesla then, and now Tesla's there to the exclusion of the other manufacturers. And it all politicizes, for me, this thing that is this amazing technology that is the future of American manufacturing and that we need to be aligned with. And it furthers that divide even more. If you love Elon and Trump, now you love the EV more. If you hated all the things that politically that are around that movement and the things not related to EVs. Now you hate EVs because it's in the same orbit of these other things that you don't like. Now you're putting stickers on cars. Now you're keying cars. Now you're misidentifying, Rivians because you thought they were Tesla because that's how dumb and uninformed you are. Now you're, what I'm saying? Like these people, they have no clue. They're just parrots. They're just out there doing what they're told on both sides. They're just saying, so yeah, I don't know that it was a net positive at all. I just think it furthers the tribalism and the divide, and that's not where I want the technology to go. One EV, regardless of who it's sold by, is better than another gas vehicle in most cases. Not in all cases. There is plenty of market space to be had. I wish it would further the conversation. I wish it would further the community and the movement, and we could come together around this amazing technology that's out there. And I just don't think that's going to be the result of it, unfortunately.
Never get over ourselves and the fact that politics play such a large role. It's like, everybody was, a year ago was pushing EV no matter what technology. And then Elon came out and got political. And all of a sudden now Tesla are like the anti-vehicle. Like nobody can buy Tesla. It's like it's the largest EV in the United States. It's a US made vehicle, but because Elon's politics now, Tesla's catching all this hate. And it's like, you can't win for losing because now, you're hurting the number one EV manufacturer that's US based. That's the 80% of the market share or whatever that number is. And it's, it's further encouraging.
Number one in America.
Yeah,
I mean, it's ubiquitous out here, man. We call it the California Camry, and people that are, they're nurses, they're in the engineering fields, they're your neighbor, they're your mom, they are your child. Like in the case of, Martin Meek, his daughter has a Tesla, and, these are entry-level positions that are in these Tesla showrooms that people are learning perhaps their first job, or their first career. Maybe it's not their first, ever job, but maybe it's their first career job. And here are people going over there, sell your car. And dude, this is an affordable, amazing, safe way. I would love my kids in a Tesla, from a safety standpoint. I can control the acceleration of it. It's efficient. I'm plugging in. There's so many great things to love affordability wise. You can find some great deals on some Model 3s out there on the used market. And it just makes me crazy that we've demonized everyday citizens under the ideas because you hate a billionaire and his politics. I'm not dismissing the real impact that has on certain people and the people that they love and care for, that those politics have an absolute impact. I get it. But the way to go about it isn't to demonize an entire group of owners, people that work for that person. I mean, the guy owns 13-14% of the company. That means 85 of it is owned by the rest of us. And I just wish people had perspective on it. Protest the person, protest the politics, but leave the manufacturing folks and the people that are working and the people that are buying this product. Who are they supposed to sell it to? Let's sell my Tesla to who? Now you're mad at me, but tomorrow you're mad at Bill because Bill bought my used Tesla. Who are you benefiting selling your Tesla? It doesn't hurt Elon. He's got your money. And in a way, regardless of how you feel about Elon, I mean, the dude clearly has taken a hit. His stock is down. It's cut in half since it was, I think, around Christmas. So the dude's lost billions of dollars. Nobody's going to cry for him losing billions of dollars. But around that, everyone who has a stake in that company, people that have their investments, their 401k, their government pensions, their retirement plans, police, fire, automotive, UAW workers, I promise you, most of our audience, if they have investments in a 401k or an IRA or any kind of pension plan, I promise you that most of you have lost money because of the downturn of Tesla and the associated drama with it. And so it just doesn't help anybody. And go ahead.
I think it's part of the general market sentiment has had to trickle down, but I mean, it is tanked more severe than the rest of the stocks. But the reality is if you're hurting Tesla on purpose by whatever means that is, the people affected, like you said, nobody's going to cry over Elon losing, even if he's lost half of his net worth, he's still worth far more than any of us would ever fathom to dream of. The people that are really hurt is the EV market and the American people because it's an American-made vehicle and it's the leader of our American EV market. The biggest winner in that transaction would very likely be BYD and some of these other competitors that will eventually infiltrate and take over the market, which, like Jesse just alluded to, I think that's anti everything that anybody on both sides of the political spectrum would want to see. But right now, the only affordable, I'm going to say this loosely, but the only affordable EV on the market is Tesla. The only affordable alternative is BYD. So pick your poison. Would you rather have a Chinese takeover of the U.S. automotive market, or would you rather, like you were saying, Chris, work to a solution where you're not tearing down a company on a 14% owner? Yes, you created this technology, but it is the affordable, the best technology that we have in the United States for an EV, and hurting that space is going to drastically affect the EV growth in the United States. And that's nothing. I mean, we're at still at the very beginning of growth compared to every other country around us. And so that would be gigantically detrimental to the U.S. EV space as a whole, which, if you're looking at it from one side, the environmental impacts that are associated with that, you're not going to accomplish anywhere near your goal. But then on the flip side of that, if you're on the other side, then the job creation and the energy independence and a lot of those other variables that EVs can provide, you lose all that benefit as well. And so, what's the value? And I don't know, like we talked about, I don't know if this stunt did any good for either side. But that's still something that, there's got to be that middle ground. It's the whole, like we said, it's the whole reason that we have this chat is how do we bridge the gap between the hate that takes place on both sides, come up with that common ground of, like you said, Chris, amazing technology, awesome opportunity for us to speak the truth of the matter to the average person, and not take this gigantic political. This is not EVs are not political. That we had that whole conversation last week. Take it and use it for the technology and the good that it does.
Yeah, I think we are in agreement there. If nothing else, I think as a father, it was cool to see little X, which is a weird name, but whatever. Name your kids whatever you want to name your kids. There were some adorable shots of, look, if I could bring my son and daughter to the White House, hang out with the president, and go around, the White House lawn and get on a helicopter, I would probably enjoy that moment. So, I mean, look at the exuberance.
A rocket to try to save astronauts in outer space. So it's like he's got his hands full. Yeah.
So
that's all you got to do, Chris. Build your rocket that'll save astronauts, and you too can be there.
Yeah, we're instead I'm bringing my kids to a jump place on the weekends to let them bounce around bouncy houses. So not quite a rocket ship, but they're gonna still enjoy it nonetheless. But yeah.
I think anybody can disagree that Elon is built differently. His mind works in ways that none of us can comprehend. And there's a reason that he's as successful as he is. Take the politics out of it. The dude's done so much for every different space that he touches. It's something that's to be admired. But also, the recent politicization that he's done, he has every right to do that because he's a American citizen that has the right to free speech, and yet at the same time, it's had consequences on both sides of everything. So just something to figure out how that all navigates moving forward.
Yeah, and I get it. People are like, "Oh, finally, someone's going to say something from our side and speak up." Man, a normal person, which we've already established, Elon is not normal, for better or for worse. They'd get a PR department, man. They'd get a company to redo this image. He'd be worried about losing a seat on the board, which I think is the intent of a lot of these people. Is let's get the board to pressure him to step down out of Tesla. There's an argument to be made there. And any other company, this would probably never be what it is, but it's like Steve Jobs stepping down from Apple. You know what I mean? There was a period where he did step down. He went and started doing stuff with Next, started doing stuff with what's the name of that animation studio, Pixar, right? And again, that's the kind of genius these people are, man. This is the next level. And then he comes back to Apple and really revitalized Apple at a time that Apple was struggling. So, without Musk is Tesla, is SpaceX. People say there's a great line from the Facebook movie where they're arguing, and the two brothers that were suing, Zuckerberg were like, we came up with the Facebook, and he's like, do you see any of your code in this product? If you would have invented Facebook, you could have invented Facebook. Like, you didn't. I did. It's my personality. It's my drive. It's my ambition. It's me sleeping on the factory floor. It's me having unrealistic expectations. That's why my rockets are able to be caught with giant mecha arms, right? And it's right. This is why we're away from Russian technology and not beholden to them anymore. There's so much there. And then there's the toxic part. There's the part that's dehumanizes. There's the part that childishly jokes and trolls. And look, my 9-year-old would appreciate that, and a 12-year-old in me appreciates it. I get it. It's very hurtful to some people. It's not great. It's not helpful. It doesn't move the discourse or the movement. It doesn't help the community. And the same, I don't know what to do with it. I don't think anybody does. I wish he would have an epiphany moment where he can somehow come back, and I miss old Elon's tweets that were focused on technology, renewable, sustainable energy, human transport. Let's focus on that. Michael Jordan famously said back in the day about why he doesn't speak out more politically. He said Republicans buy tennis shoes too. And sneakers, right? Yeah, that's just people have passions on both sides of this. I absolutely respect it, but it's not helping anybody right now where it is. So
there's a healthy narrative of the exact same thing. Republicans can buy EVs too. Use your influence for good, but at the same time, like don't make this. You're just further driving the stake into the politicization, and somehow EVs and Teslas now like being portrayed as, I guess, a Republican thing. I don't even know how that's perceived, but nonetheless, like, it just use your influence for good, and don't buy an entire social media platform to broadcast your will on. But yeah, that's there's so much that can take place, but I would love to see a world in which it can just be a nice central ground of, hey, EVs aren't the enemy, one, and two, like there's a lot of opportunity for good by all companies that are U.S. making and make an initiative and a promotion of, let's make EVs in the United States, which is happening. I've talked about this before. The Southeast is that hub where we're seeing a lot of those investments by Rivian and Hyundai and Volkswagen and Ford, and all these things happening. Promote that. Keep that going, because if we don't, then China will end up taking over the EV market. The moment that if there was a tariff reduction or an opening for that to be imported without any penalty, the BYD would take over the U.S. market, just because affordability outweighs everything when it comes to American decisions, because you can't buy an $80,000 EV, but a $20,000 would sell all day. And so that's just, we have to look at how do you promote it. What does it mean to make a cheap EV in the United States, and focus on that, and don't worry about the politics of who said what, where, and why, and who hurt who, and it's too much to get in the weeds of. But
I think that's a good place to leave it, guys. Use your influence for good, and hopefully that's something that we are doing, or at least we're trying to do. I think that's.
I'm just trying to give everybody that what's going on.
Show us your T-shirt, Jesse. I love your T-shirt.
Oh yeah, feeling
optimistic. Yes, sir. Everything all in. Still feeling optimistic.
Optimistic.
Using our influence for good. Jesse leading the way.
Power Up will be having some exciting updates coming soon, so we'll be sharing that in the upcoming future. And
we have a site. We won't get into details because you've not brought it up, but we do have a site that's been obligated and will be built, and we'll give some more details as we get it going.
Process of how we put together our flagship site, and it'll be the launch of the very first Power Up. So it'll be fun to see all that to come together. But we are going to bring you our TDFW crew along, and you'll get to see some live updates on the channel. And
that's exciting.
If you don't, because we'll have a lot more video content there. But if you're listening, we'll talk about it in our weekly episodes, in the updates that we have. But we'll have some actual site updates and stuff via video on our YouTube channel. So like and subscribe if you don't. comment below your thoughts on today's episode. Let us know what you think about this whole conversation. Obviously, there's lots of different opinions on both sides, but take the perspective of the neutral ground. How do you set that neutral ground? And send us your comments, because we would love to. We want to bridge that gap. We want to help bring everybody together around this awesome technology and continue to push forward and promote what we love and what we do best, which is EVs. So stay tuned, like, subscribe, whatever platform you choose to listen on. We are doing our best to be regular, but tune in Thursday night to another episode of Tech Charge with Jace and Martin and Chris. I'm usually getting kids to bed, so it's a hard time for me to hop on and live stream, but I enjoy tuning in on my phone and dropping comments as I can.
And this week we're supposed to have special guest Robert from Ford on. He's going to try to join us. He is traveling that day for Electrify Expo in Orlando. So assuming his plane lands on time and everything goes well, he is going to try to jump on live with us and talk a little bit about his road trips, Electrify Expo, the new adapter, the new navigation from Ford with Apple CarPlay. So yeah, definitely join us for that live broadcast on Thursday night. Shout out to Robert and the Ford team, who always do a great job in the community. And it's going to be exciting to talk to him. Hopefully all goes well with travel and it's safe, and we can talk to him from the hotel there. That's going to be a real treat for everybody if it happens.
Oh, I hate that I missed that one. That wasn't on our list, Josh.
The Electrify Expo. Would you be able to go to Orlando?
It was on our list. They got multiple ones
Expo.
that are throughout the year. So we got one closer to us.
Yep.
All
Well,
right.
continue using our influence for good, guys.
That's what we try to do, which I don't know how much influence we have, but I think it's better than none.
Dozens.
Yeah.
Dozens of people. There are dozens of people literally watching us live. Shout out to all those on X that are watching us right now. Over 30 folks. So dozens. We are influencing dozens, and hopefully they'll go about their day today, and those that watch in the future with positivity.
Definitely.
Good.
On the other part, definitely want to get into our sites. That's one thing that we're going to have a big thing on, where we are going to show you what the site looks like beforehand, what problems we're running into, what the electrical issues we're running into, the equipment, everything. So once we start, we're going to have a lot of updates on a weekly basis on every step it takes to get it.
No, I'm just kidding. No, we'll have feedback and points on maybe some topics that you may want to see, but we as EV drivers have put this together, and we're excited to be able to release it to the world. But more information coming soon. So.
Yep. By EV drivers for EV drivers. It's going to be great.
Exactly what it is. Yep.
It's what it is. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Tune in next week for more EV news and updates. Well, actually, I said Thursday, but also we'll be back next week. So see you Thursday and next week.
Thanks for tuning in to Turn Down for What. Make sure you're subscribed with your notifications on to tune in to more EV news and updates. See you next time.